Do you know how many astronauts there are in the world? Well, very few, obviously. There are less perfumers.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, there could be a problem with me pronouncing the name because I'm only back from Paris, right? So I should be able to get this. Parfum?
Yes, very good. Excellent. It's
brilliant.
Actually, the story of the name is that we took the French word parfum, we looked at the English word perfume, and we kind of merged them into parfum. So that's why the I is in there. And it leads to a certain extent right into my background, in the sense that I came from the fragrance industry. And parfum or parfum is spelled like the French word, but with an I in there. So you've got the word air, right smack back in the word. And it's Parfum London. We're based here in London. And
how does one get into the perfume industry?
You know, that is a very good question. You know, if you imagine you speak to your parents and they say to you, you know, what do you want to be? You know, I'd say nobody ever. Nice. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I want to smell nice. There's a funny thing that somebody told me recently. They said, do you know how many astronauts there are in the world? Well, very few, obviously. There are less perfumers. I'm a perfumer, so there are less perfumers in the world.
How many are there?
I think maybe a few hundred, few thousand, maybe, and that's it. You know, so it really is a very, very. I think perfumery is an interesting industry as such. It's, you know, it comes from sensations. It's our nose, effectively. I got into it, I would say, purely by chance. You know, like a teenager as such, I enjoyed, you know, deodorants, perfume, and things like that. Obviously, parents have a big influence in the sense that when they take you maybe on a holiday, you smell something fantastic. Food, you know, wines, cheeses, things like that. Purely by chance, I saw an advert for a company and I said, gosh, it sounds fantastic, I must find out. And
what age were you?
Well, I was coming out of university, so I would have been around 25, something like that, so quite young. And it's, you know, I don't know whether that would still happen nowadays as such, because the perfume industry is, maybe not sound nice, it's all about fine chemistry as such, you know, because you're blending so many ingredients, you do need to have a chemistry background.
And that was your background?
Actually not, no, I did business and economics, but I got into it and I received the training from them, and it's something that takes a good long time, you know. A perfumer is more about the memory rather than the nose. You'd say, have you got a fantastic nose? Probably as good as anybody's, or, you know, no worse, no better.
But it's about tie it all to is
and it's about picking something up and starting to smell it, and then you say, oh, what can I smell here? Let's say the top note is citrus. In this case, it's beautiful water.
We had nothing else to offer you.
That's right. A lovely aquatic note, and then you work your way through the fragrance, and you need to be able to memorize a lot of ingredients, and then a bit like a chef or a musician. That's the notes or the ingredients, and then you start to build a melody. That's where the perfume comes in. And that's where you suddenly discover whether you can do it or you can't, and that's how you move forward. And then the next step comes where you say, now I take this juice, let's call it juice, and I put it into a bottle, or I put it into a piece of soap or a lotion, and it needs to come out of that again. Because if you light a candle, for example, the perfume comes out completely different because you've got heat than when you have a room fragrance where it might be in water or it might be mixed in something else, and it has to evaporate on its own accord. So it's quite technical, actually.
It's funny, like the industry that you got involved in. Like, I know you were working in it before you set up your own company, but when you always think of something like perfumes and aftershaves, you just think of it as being, it's ran by these big corporations, like I won't mention names, right? But you think it would be something so hard to get into. Well, like, is it? It is.
I would say so. It is very hard to get into, and it's. I think you know, it's also a profession that takes a long time to learn. I remember when I started, I said to them, "All right, boys, I'm here now. Let's start. Tell me how it works." And they said, "No, slow down. Before your nose really can smell, it'll take you about 2-3 years." So you think, gosh, I've just joined these boys here, and what am I going to do for 2-3 years?
To smell.
Yes, that's essentially what it is. You sit there and they give you all the fine fragrances in the world, you know, so you learn how to smell and distinguish the main fine fragrances. It'll be about 400 or 500 smells that you have to have in your head. Then you learn the ingredients, you know, that's easily a few thousand. that you have to have in your mind, and then you start. And I agree with you. There's a big difference between the global brands,
Okay.
and then what I would call the perfume houses that actually create the perfumes. And to match a global brand is unbelievably difficult. It really is.
Because there's also like the shelf space that they're given
Yes.
in airports and duty free and stuff. That if you came out with a product tomorrow, you're just not going to get in there.
No, unless you've got very deep pockets.
Yeah.
And if you look at people with deep pockets that have started perfume houses, it's staggering how few of them have actually been profitable over years.
Okay.
So there's typically either a daddy or a family behind that put lots of money into it and that can afford to be loss making.
Okay.
So when I basically started, I was aware of the global brands. I was aware of all the brands that are losing money. And I thought, well, what can you do to kind of survive against these companies? And there were two areas I thought that provided the opportunity. One was that I thought very few people really create beautifully natural fragrances. That's one area. The second area is perfumery has lost a little bit of its magic because of mass consumerism. And this is not a criticism, it's just an observation.
Yeah.
Mass consumerism has a lot of positives in the sense that we can afford these perfumes. In the past, these were things that were limited to a few privileged people. Now, anybody and everybody around the world can wear perfume. But it does mean that the small niche boutique perfume houses kind of disappeared or became enormous in terms of size.
Yeah.
And a lot of people nowadays are saying, and we see it actually, and it is amazing, people are hunting and searching for ways how to differentiate themselves. I'm sitting here with orange trousers, I love them. As mentioned to you earlier, they're my happy colors. And, so we all do things that make us ourselves. And perfume is part of our very personal sphere. Even when you go home, it's your next sphere that you sit in where you say, this is my home fragrance. Or when you go outside again, that's the next sphere where you interact with people. You've got another layer. And people spend a lot of money on unusual wines, cheeses, maybe fantastic bicycles that you see here in London. Yeah. We all have certain areas that we're passionate about that we use to define ourselves. And that's where niche perfume comes in. We have perfumes that, for example, adjust to your skin. When one of the big brands come out, they really want to make sure that this perfume is the same on you, on everybody. Because what's the point of buying, a big famous label if it doesn't smell right on you?
Yeah.
Whereas we take it the opposite way and we say we want you to be unique and unusual. So we want the perfume to react with your skin and create something unique.
How does that work? How does it work? So does an individual person have to come to you to create their own perfume, or is there different skin types? So how does that work?
It's a very interesting question that you asked there, actually, because when you think of buying perfume, typically what you do is you run through the airport at the last minute and you say, oh yeah, I'll take that one. Doesn't matter whether it's for yourself or for somebody. That's a bit the scenario. Or you go into a department store and you're overwhelmed with a scent that comes past you. They spray you as quickly as they can and occupy your hands. Or you're, let's say, in a normal store and you walk past the shelf and they have got candles or reed diffusers and they're all evaporating. So it's not a very relaxed or scent neutral environment. And so therefore your question is very, very valid. How do you find a fragrance that's right for you? You're absolutely right. It's very difficult. And it's very much trial and error. I think the best suggestion that I always have is that you go wherever you are and you pick up these paper strips. You let them spray the paper strips. You smell them, walk around with it a little bit in the airport or in the department store. Keep the ones that you like, discard the ones that you don't like, but remember the one that you like, not that you stand there with 10 smelling strips and say, I love that one, but what was it? And then you go back and you say, I'd love it on my skin. And that's a little bit of a scenario whereby you say, here you discover then whether it works for you or not. It literally is trial and error. And I always say, don't be bullied by the charm of the beautiful ladies that are saying to you, oh, would you like to try this?
Just a big basket full of
That's well,
that's right. How many have we got that we buy and we discover, it doesn't really work that well?
I can't walk through the airport with them anymore. Where are you going with all the aftershaves?
That last one I got actually grew on me because I didn't like it. It smelled like a sofa.
Yes.
It was obviously leather. It was a kind of a...
Beautiful.
It's like a sofa.
I was like, that smells like a
used sofa.
It smelled like a sofa. But then I went back and smelled it again, and it was a Tom Ford one, the black Tom Ford one.
Yes.
And it kind of grew on me. I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay, and then that's the one I got.
Yes. No, they're nice.
My own
perfumes.
choice. I wasn't
That's a
too
good smelling sofa.
Well, we do have, the funny thing is, we have, for example, notes that we work on where we call them vintage leather. You know, that's a version of saying the old sofa in a nicer way. You imagine that you sit, you sit in a library. I mean, we've got a beautiful note called Cedar Noir. And the concept there is the English library. You know, because you sit there, you've got the books, you've got the wood paneling, you've got the leather.
But it just sounds so nice in French.
Ah,
you know,
yes.
Yeah. Instead of someone going, oh, what's that? Oh, it's wooden library.
Yeah.
What?
Here's a really practical thing, right? Let's say the British Library, the books, the wood, the smell, how old it is. How do you capture that? I don't even know. How do you capture that and get it into a bottle?
It's that's a science in its own right, and you can approach it from two angles. The first angle is you say, I approach it with my nose. I, as a perfumer, go in and I say, this is fantastic. And then I start to recreate and say, oh, I must have a little bit of cedar in there, I must have a leather note, and so forth.
Oh, okay.
There are also other techniques whereby you can say, this is more scientific nowadays, where you've got probes that you use and they absorb certain materials, and then you run it through a variety of machinery and they can tell you, oh, this is what's inside
The robots are taking over, you're saying?
Well, actually, the nose...
But they don't have to study for 2 years.
No, that's right. The nose can distinguish something like 1 trillion different perfumes. Machines are nowhere near that. They're getting very good at lots of different things, but they're not as sensitive as that. The nose is still way ahead in that respect. Well, the other area, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. The other area is that you say, when you create something new, you might start with a new raw material. That you say, I have been to XYZ rainforest and found X or Y. Or what the modern perfumery houses are very good at nowadays is that they say, we know there were problems in the past. We've created new ingredients that are produced through, let's say, biofermentation, which are biodegradable, which are safe, etc., etc. And with those new ingredients, you can create new notes. One idea is, for example, amber wood, whereby you have a mix of amber and wood. And here you've got something which, you know, amber, you would say, could be, you know, ambergris is an animal note. Yeah. Amber is a fossil, what you say, do you really want to get hold of it? So you've got a variety of ingredients where you might say in the past, pardon me, these are ingredients that are really not acceptable anymore because they're either animal derived or animal tested or not acceptable. So that might be a starting point. So it's really both ends. It's coming either from the raw material side, or you say, I've got a concept, a bit like what you said. I love the library. Or we had recently an experience, very unusual, where we came to the seaside. We discovered, has the seaside lost its scent? And you think, what? Could be. But we were walking along the beach, and there wasn't a scent. And it kind of got us, obviously there was not no scent, but it was very scent-free. And it led us towards kelp as, you know, a form of algae as such, which has a very unusual note. And in most cases, when you walk past the beach, you find a little bit of algae or kelp or something like that. And it gives a mineral note, a kind of an algae note, very, very fresh, very unusual. And on the back of that, we created a new fragrance called Sea Salt, Sage and Amber. And it's based on this experience whereby we thought, has the seaside lost its fragrance?
Well, here's the point, because I know we're going to run out of time.
Oh, sorry.
And I want to see what you would come up. We're probably going to shoot ourselves in the foot here now.
Yes.
But the startup van aftershave or perfume, right? Yes. After coming into our studio, what are you picking up on, right? And it better not be old booze or something. What's the perfume you're going to put together for startup van?
Well, 2 gents.
Okay.
So I would say it has to be more masculine in terms of nature.
Of course.
I would say, you know, you're very vibrant, you're very lively, so it would have to be a younger note. You have a lot of fabrics in here, so I would probably start and think about something natural. Let's definitely some beautiful wood. There would have to be some wood in there.
We don't know if it's ply or chip.
Yeah. Now this looks like aloe vera. Could that be right?
Could be.
Or it could even be plastic. Who knows?
All right. Okay. So a bit of plastic.
It is aloe vera.
So I think there would be some wood in there. It would be something fresh, lively, young. There might be a fabric that I could think of. Some new natural material in
Yeah.
that area. I could put something together. Yeah, we can test it on air.
Yeah.
There's the start of Van Perfume.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting concept. It's a London fragrance, so it would fit with us. Yes, very exciting.
And it's coming to the stores very, very soon.
Yeah.
That's right.
Duty free near you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Cheers.
It's actually
Thank you very
interesting.
much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I
Thanks.
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.